Welcome back to Experience Points, a show in which I talk about games that I'm still playing through in order to give you an idea as to whether or not I think they're worth your time or not. And today I'm talking about Dragon Quest XI. Dragon Quest XI is a game that came out fairly recently, but a lot of people have already started playing through it. I, on the other hand, have only just started playing it because I just finished my playthrough of Octopath Traveler, the full review of which I should have out within the next week or so, I think. But getting back to Dragon Quest XI. Is this game worth your time? Well, I would recommend this game to you, for sure, if you are at all a fan of more classic turn-based style RPGs. Especially if you're a fan of Dragon Quest VIII, which I definitely am. This game is essentially an iteration of that formula. It's still the same old Dragon Quest that's turn-based that we all know and love, that has that very classic system that hasn't really tinkered around the edges too much. But it's still a cleaner version of its predecessors. It's not a revolution, it's an evolution, you know? It's something that I think I love Dragon Quest for, actually. While a lot of classic intellectual properties that are classically turn-based games are slowly and surely shifting away from the turn-based presentation, well, Dragon Quest is keeping it awesome. The more Final Fantasy changes, the more Dragon Quest stays the same, and I love that dynamic. So as you begin the game, you give the character your own name. He doesn't really have his own voice in this game. It's a very blank slate sort of character, as is typical with many of the Dragon Quests of the past. So if that's something that turns you off about some of these games, then that's going to be something that probably will continue to bug you about this one. However, I'd argue that you should give it a shot anyway, because the presentation is just very lighthearted and fun. It's a classical fantasy medieval sort of setting that doesn't take itself too seriously. The game is full of puns and humor and interesting characters that keep it pretty interesting. It's the kind of series that never really drank its own Kool-Aid, if you know what I mean. As you begin the game, you see some cutscenes take place that something's going on. Some girl's running through the woods with a little baby in a sack, and something happens, and you don't really know what, but fast forward several years later, and, well, you are participating in a coming-of-age ceremony, which is pretty cool. You and your girlfriend, sort of girlfriend, are doing this coming-of-age ceremony together because you have the same birthdays. I think it does a really great job of showing you how great things were before things went to pot, which things do eventually go to pot, as is wont to happen in classic RPGs. The game definitely gives a good reason for you to actually care about what's going on, and before you know it, you're wrapped up into something much bigger than yourself and being chased around the globe by knights who would like to put you under for some reason that I'll leave up to you to find out. Dragon Quest XI feels like a real solid iteration of the Dragon Quest series. I've been playing through Dragon Quest 1 through 5 recently in order to kind of refresh my memory on these games, and had so much fun in doing so. And I last finished with 5, which I think was probably one of the best, and this so far definitely feels like it belongs among Dragon Quest V and 8. I can't wait to finish the game and be able to tell you more about it. In this game, they've also introduced things like mounts. You can ride horses, and you can ride monsters even to do specific things like climb walls or jump really high to access areas that were previously inaccessible to you. And there's also lots of things out there to go and explore and to find. Mini medals are scattered throughout Dragon Quest XI, as is tradition, and they're not always very easy to find, but there's also other collectibles that you can put together using a forge of sorts that kind of replaces the alchemy pot from Dragon Quest VIII. It's actually a pretty fun interactive mini game to craft weapons and armor and to improve on them as well, which is really handy. Now, while the main character of the game is definitely one of those tabula rasa, blank slate characters that just doesn't really talk at all or have any sort of personality to him at all, the other characters in your party are the polar opposite. Very big personalities, very bombastic, different accents. There's one guy who sounds like he's from Brooklyn, and then you've got a few other people that sound like they're from England, and you've got somebody who sounds like they're from Scotland. It's all over the place. I feel like sometimes when you have a bunch of characters in your party, and at this point I have 7, there's a lot of characters, sometimes it feels like they don't fulfill a role well. I can tell you for certainty that so far, I'm about 50 hours in, and the game still feels like it's getting going. It's just getting going, and these characters have not yet been forgotten. They still feel really unique in my mind, and I feel like this is going to be a really great way for me to spend the next 100 hours of my life or so. So, thank you all for joining me. I'm going to be giving a full review of Dragon Quest XI once I've completely finished it. This is just my impressions, again, but so far things sound really promising. I think you should check it out if you haven't already. If you've been waiting for my opinion on this, I'm about 50 hours in. My opinion so far is a big thumbs up, but we'll talk about that more some other time. Until then, guys, take care of yourselves and have a good day.